When you think about occultism, you probably picture, I don't know, dusty old books, maybe complex charts, secret groups.
Right. Ancient traditions, guarded knowledge.
Exactly. But what if magic wasn't just that? What if it was like an experimental art form put together pretty recently,
Yeah.
using things like shamanism, philosophy, but also modern science?
Quantum physics, chaos theory.
Yeah, that specific mix, that synthesis feels really different.
It absolutely is. And that's what we're really digging into today. Peter J. Carroll's big works, Liber, Null, and Psychonaut, they basically laid out this whole framework.
And it really took off, didn't it? Kind of swept through the magical world in the 90s.
Oh, massively. Carroll himself is, well, he's an interesting figure. Came at it with a scientist mindset, developed these ideas back in the 70s and 80s.
He was even Grand Master of the Illuminates of Thanateros at one point.
That's right. He really bridged that gap between, say, hard physics and some pretty radical occult practices.
And he's direct about it. He gives his definition of magic right at the start.
Yeah, no messing around. He says it's the raising of the whole individual in perfect balance to the power of infinity.
Yeah.
It's presented as fundamentally practical, experimental, even verifiable.
Okay, but before we get into the techniques, there's a really important warning from Carroll himself.
Yes, absolutely crucial.
He stresses that the book has some powerful exercises, things designed to push consciousness into extreme states, and they're only for people in good health.
He's very specific.
Yeah. If you have heart issues, epilepsy, any chronic illness, these practices are definitely not for you. They should be avoided.
It underscores how intense this stuff can be. It's not armchair philosophy.
Definitely not. So with that serious caution out of the way, let's get into the theory behind it all, this chaos magic foundation.
Okay, so the theoretical core. First thing to grasp is how eclectic it is.
Right, it borrows from all over the place.
All over. You've got threads of animism, ancient shamanism, bits from things like the Greek magical papyri, then more modern figures like Crowley.
And Austin Osman Spare, who seems really key.
Hugely influential, yes.
Yeah.
But Carroll's starting point, the sort of problem he identifies, is duality.
Our tendency to see everything in opposites.
Exactly. Happy, sad, being, doing, cause, effect. Our normal mind works by comparing things. It needs that contrast.
And chaos magic wants to get past that.
That's the whole game. To bypass that comparative, dualistic way of thinking, because there's something else.
Which is Kia.
Yes, Kia. That's Carroll's term for the self. The actual consciousness, that kind of slippery sense of I that's behind all the thoughts and feelings.
The thing the dualistic mind can't quite grasp directly because it works by comparison.
Precisely. Kia is singular. It's the core consciousness. But it gets trapped, you could say, or buried under the ego, the constant mental chatter.
So the goal of the magic is freeing Kia.
Fundamentally, yes. Giving Kia the maximum freedom and flexibility to actually act, to manifest its power without being dragged down by desire or worry or even logic.
Okay, and the power it draws on is chaos. That sounds, well, messy.
Yeah, the name is tricky, but it's not about disorder in the usual sense. Carroll uses chaos to mean the fundamental source of events, the ongoing creative force behind everything.
Like the engine driving evolution, making things more complex.
Exactly like that. Life from dust, complexity emerging. He picked the name chaos almost, because it's kind of meaningless in a religious way.
So it avoids loading it with ideas like God or the Tao or anything like that.
Right. It's meant to be neutral, pure potential.
Okay, so Kia is our spark of that potential. How do we make it do something? Where does the magic happen?
That brings us to the etheric plane. Think of it as the realm of possibility, like a field surrounding life force itself.
That's the magical workshop there.
That's where the action is. You manipulate the ether, and this is where he brings in the physics analogies again.
You mentioned that earlier. He says science is sort of blundering into the etheric. That's pretty bold.
It is. He points to things like quantum indeterminacy, the observer effect, particles not quite being there until measured. He sees the ether like that.
Yeah.
It's indeterminate potential until something acts on it.
And magic is that action.
Right. Your thought gives the ether shape, the intention, and your Kia provides the actual power to make that shape. Well, real, to manifest it.
Fascinating blend of ideas. So moving from theory to practice, the main way to actually do this magic is by achieving gnosis.
Gnosis is everything. It's the absolute key. It's basically an altered state of consciousness.
Also called no mind, samadhi?
Yeah, different names, same core idea. Achieving such intense awareness, such focus, that the normal thinking process just stops. The dualistic chatter ceases completely.
I get the intense awareness bit, but why does thinking stop the magic? You mentioned lust of result earlier.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's critical. If you reach that intense state, that gnosis, but then immediately start thinking, did it work? Am I going to get my promotion or whatever?
The doubt creeps in.
Exactly. The anxiety, the neediness, that re-engages the ego, the dualistic mind. It waters down the pure intent and basically sabotages the subtle work the subconscious is supposed to be doing.
So, gnosis needs total mental silence about the outcome after the peak moment.
Absolutely essential. Okay, so there are two main ways, physiologically speaking, to get into this state. Two paths to shutting down that analytical mind.
Right, and they both end up in the same place, this no-mind state.
Correct. The first path is the inhibitory mode, the stillness. This is about progressively quieting the mind, narrowing focus until only one single thing remains.
Examples.
Could be intense concentration on an object, a sound, or more extreme practices like the death posture.
Okay, let's pause there. The death posture. The descriptions involve forcefully restricting breath and thought to the point of nearly passing out, or that fixed, unblinking staring.
Yes, it's deliberately pushing physiological limits.
Which, going back to that health warning, sounds incredibly risky. We really need to emphasize again, these specific extreme techniques carry serious physical dangers. They shouldn't be undertaken lightly, if at all.
Absolutely agree. They are presented, but with extreme caution advised. The, let's say, safer concentration methods often involve using meaningless subjects.
Why meaningless?
To stop the ego lashing on, if you focus on a complex sigil you just made or a mantra in a language you don't know, your mind can't easily attach hopes or fears or spiritual ideas to it. The focus has to be purely mechanical, absolute. Avoids that lust of result.
Okay, then there's the other path, much more dramatic. The excitatory mode, the frenzy.
Right. Instead of calming down, you whip yourself up into such a state of excitement, physical or emotional, that the mind sort of short circuits.
Forces a reflex shutdown.
Kind of. It paralyzes everything except the core focus, the magical intention.
And this involves some pretty intense methods, too.
Oh, yeah. This is where you get into using extreme emotional states, deliberately invoking intense anger, fear, even horror, to push you into trance.
Or physical exhaustion.
Yes, things like nonstop dancing, drumming for hours, going without sleep, fasting, even using controlled pain. It's about pushing the system to its absolute limit.
And sexual energy plays a big role here, too. How does that fit into reaching gnosis?
It's seen as a very potent source of physiological energy that can be harnessed. Often it involves techniques like carezza, prolonged intense arousal, while consciously inhibiting orgasm.
So you build up this massive tension.
And then redirect that raw energy, that lust, away from its usual goal and pour it into the magical working instead.
Yeah.
It can create a very powerful, focused trance state, useful for things like specific evocations or divination.
Okay, so once someone understands the theory, gets a handle on achieving gnosis through one of these paths, they move on to the practical syllabus, starting with Liber the neophyte course.
Right, and this phase is all about mind control, really. Personal change, metamorphosis, and keeping a rigorous magical diary is mandatory, every day recorded.
The key exercise seems to be metamorphosis, restructuring the mind, making it more flexible.
That's the goal, being able to adopt any viewpoint, any perspective at will. And Carroll offers a surprisingly down-to-earth way to start practicing this. You randomly pick a minor habit you have, something trivial, and you deliberately delete it. Just stop doing it. Then you pick a new, equally arbitrary minor habit and force yourself to adopt it.
That sounds almost too simple for magic. Like changing which sock you put on first. How is that profound?
Because Carroll argues those tiny habits are like anchors for your personality. They define your rigid sense of self. By constantly, consciously messing with these little anchors, you start to pull them up. You gain a bit of internal freedom, some wiggle room, enough flexibility to actually make magical changes happen, instead of just being stuck in your own mental grooves.
And this freed-up will is often focused using sigils. You mentioned ordinary wanting doesn't work well because our minds are full of conflicting thoughts. How do sigils get around that?
They basically hide the desire from the conscious mind. You take your wish, usually phrased as a sentence, and you convert it into a pictorial symbol, a glyph.
Makes it visually abstract.
Exactly. Then you concentrate intensely on that sigil image during gnosis. But the crucial, absolutely vital part comes after.
Forgetting it.
You must consciously forget the original desire. Banish it from your mind. The idea is the subconscious got the message loud and clear during gnosis, and now it needs to be left alone to work without the conscious mind interfering, worrying, checking up on it.
Before you even get to sigils, though, or things like magical dreaming, he insists on mastering a banishing ritual. Why is that so fundamental?
Several reasons. Preparation setting the stage, protection keeping unwanted influences out, and mental hygiene preventing obsession with the magical goals.
Resisting that lust of result again.
Precisely. It's about creating a clean, protected psychological space. Usually involves visualizing some kind of 3D energy barrier, often using a magical tool like a dagger or wand to trace it out.
And underpinning all this practice is a pretty radical ethical stance.
Oh, definitely. The chaos magic ethic is stark. It basically says everyone has the right to act, desire, believe, and achieve whatever they want.
Provided they don't stop others from doing the same.
That's the caveat. But notice what it doesn't say. It's very different from, say, the Wiccan Rede of harm none.
How so?
This framework explicitly allows for causing harm, not just in self-defense, but if the magician decides it's justified according to their own will and goals. It's very pragmatic, almost amoral in a traditional sense, fits the individualistic, chaotic viewpoint.
That sounds like it could easily slide into pure self-interest justifying anything. Where are the guardrails, other than not interfering with others' similar rights?
That's the inherent tension, isn't it? It puts enormous responsibility on the individual, knowing the ultimate results are unpredictable, chaotic. And for those who push further into what Carroll calls the black magical syllabus, Liber Nox, well, it gets even more extreme.
Like transmogrification.
Right. Shifting consciousness by doing things considered monstrous or totally arbitrary, specifically to break human conditioning. He gives examples like abandoning all fixed patterns, home, job, relationships, to live in total fluidity. It's about shattering limitations.
Which brings us to the bigger picture, the worldview. Starting with this idea of an aeonic cycle of human consciousness.
Yeah, Carroll maps out these big phases. First, the animistic, shamanistic eon, then paganism, then monotheism, then the fourth, atheism or rationalism.
And now, he argues, we're entering the fifth eon, the chaosist one.
Which he sees as a kind of spiral return, echoing the consciousness of the first eon, magical, fluid, but now with technology.
But it could go either way. Renaissance or dystopia.
That's the crossroads he posits. Either a great leap in human potential, psychic and magical abilities flowering, or a new dark age. Totalitarian control using these emerging magical technologies for oppression. High stakes.
Central to this planetary view is Baphomet, not the usual devil figure.
No, not at all in this context. Baphomet here represents the focus of the planet's life force, like the collective psychic field generated by all living things on Earth.
The planetary subconscious, almost.
You could put it that way. Often symbolizes that hermaphroditic horned god, embodying both life and death, creation and destruction. Think Pan or Shivakali.
And how does it connect to us individually?
It connects back to our deep evolutionary past. Those primal drives, the so-called reptilian circuits still in our brains. Baphomet represents that deep atavistic power that later belief systems tried to suppress. The magician seeks to tap into that raw energy.
But to get to those deep levels, you have to deal with the psychic sensor. What's that?
It's like a mental filter, the mechanism that shields our everyday consciousness from being totally overwhelmed.
By what?
By everything. Constant telepathy, glimpses of the future, intrusions from the aether. The sensor edits reality down so we can function, focus on physical survival. It's necessary for normal life, for sanity, really.
But for a magician, it's an obstacle.
It's a barrier to be bypassed, tricked, or temporarily disabled during magical work.
And this leads to maybe the most unsettling idea in the whole system, the nature of the self. Carroll seems to argue that things like a higher self or a fixed true will, they're just myths.
That's the really radical part. His stance is basically, there is no sovereign sanctuary within ourselves which represents our real nature. There is nobody at home in the internal fortress.
Wow. So your identity is just a collection of habits and beliefs you could potentially change.
Completely negotiable, yes. Which leads to the ultimate danger in this path.
If the self isn't fixed, you could mistakenly identify some random bit of your own ego, some fragment with your genius or holy guardian angel or whatever idealized self you're aiming for.
Exactly. And when that mistaken identity happens, when those ego scraps get inflated and worshipped, that's Charon's on.
The demon of dispersion and illusion.
The monster born from misidentified ego. Carroll says it causes the magician to go spectacularly insane. It represents the total failure of the magical experiment, the collapse into delusion.
Okay, let's circle back finally to the science that kicked this off, chaos theory. How does the math actually support the magic here?
Well, chaos theory's core idea is extreme sensitivity to initial conditions. The butterfly effect, right? A tiny change now can lead to massive unpredictable results later.
And magicians have always intuitively known that.
Carroll argues yes. It scientifically validates the magical principle that small, highly focused actions can ripple outwards in huge ways.
Which leads to that practical magical advice. Enchant, long and divine short.
Meaning, put your intense effort into the initial magical act, the spell, charging the sigil. That's the enchant long. Aim for long-term, potentially unpredictable consequences. But don't bother trying to predict the immediate future, the divine short, because the system is too chaotic for that.
So summing up, chaos magic comes across as this intensely practical, almost ruthlessly experimental system.
Very much so. It's all about giving your core consciousness, your Kia, more freedom, more flexibility, mastering those altered states, the gnosis, using these techniques.
To make reality bend to your will.
Essentially. Because the self, your will, is seen as ultimately fluid and changeable too.
I think for me, the idea that really sticks, the most provocative one, is that claim. No sovereign sanctuary within ourselves. There is nobody at home.
It really pulls the rug out from under your feet, doesn't it? It forces you to question the very foundation of who you think you are.
If yourself is just this collection of habits and beliefs, and there's no core you.
Then the chaosist path offers a kind of liberation, maybe. A demanding one. It implies the ultimate freedom is being able to choose your beliefs arbitrarily. To believe anything or disbelieve anything completely at will.
The ultimate cognitive flexibility.
Exactly.